Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and extend that to any First Nations people tuning in. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. On with the show.
I wanted to write a story about someone that wasn't special in Morocco, that was just ordinary. They're one of those little old ladies you might see walking past you in the marketplace, and you just kind of go, oh yeah, there's a little old lady, nothing outstanding about her, but of course she's lived this extraordinary life full of, rich pleasure and pain.
Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journey to publication. If you're looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, jump online and give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review. It really helps the show out. If you also want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening to us and supporting the Australian book industry. You can also find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. Today, I'm joined by Nadia Mahjouri, a Moroccan-Australian writer, counsellor, and group facilitator specialising in maternal mental health. She is the host of the Whole Truth, Motherhood and the Writing Life podcast, where she interviews authors about how they manage to keep writing while dealing with the day-to-days of family life, work, and creativity. She was shortlisted for the Deborah Crass Prize, the QWC Publisher Competition, and the SBS Emerging Writers Competition. But we're here today to talk about her debut novel, Half Truth, published by Penguin Random House Australia, which you can get a copy of down in the description. We will discuss mild spoilers, so I recommend you grab a copy now, or at least very soon. I started off by asking Nadia about her extracurricular pursuits, how her career has influenced the subject matter of the book, and also taking Penguin on the cultural journey of learning about Morocco. Nadia, welcome to Date with a Debut.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm just want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Awabakal Country in Nipaluna, Ludbrook, otherwise known as Hobart, in Tasmania. Thanks for having me.
It's very welcome. I think you are actually the first Tasmanian author that we've had on the show. So represent. That's
oh wow!
I think, which is super freaking cool. Yes, first Tasmanian. I'm pretty sure. I'll need to go back through, but I'm pretty sure that you're the first Tasmanian that we've had on the show.
That's incredible.
And before we kind of dive into the book, I mean, I like to kind of first poke authors a little bit about their creative journey and also some of their other creative pursuits. And I first of all want to shout out that I respect the hustle because you've got a podcast of your own.
I do have a podcast of my own.
Yeah, and I believe the description is where you interview authors about how they manage to keep writing despite the rigors of day-to-day life and family and everything in between. And I want to start by asking, what's the best advice you've picked up from doing the show? I'm asking for a friend.
That's basically my aim, is to just pick authors' brains about what I can do to try and make sense of this crazy mess that I find myself in,
I see what you're doing.
In amongst kind of life. Yeah. So, but the best advice, different things work for different people. So I think there's a plethora of advice, and you can it's a bit of a smorgasbord. You just pick the little bits that works for you. But for me, I think the most important thing for anyone kind of juggling family life and writing is that you have to accept that you're going to feel bad, almost like you're gonna have to put yourself at the top of the list, and you have to prioritize your creative life. And sometimes that means that other things are going to drop off, and that has to be okay, or you have to kind of come to terms with that. I suppose you can't be everything for everyone and still kind of live the creative life that you really want to. But also in the end, I think that's a good thing. I think it's important for our kids to see their parents kind of living creative lives. But, you might not have that perfect house, or you may not have, you may not want to get to be on the PTA, or all of those things, a terrible loss. for me, horrible. I don't get to do that, but yeah, something will drop off, and that has to be okay.
That is a great answer to that question. I must admit that is something I myself have really personally struggled with. Like, I have sometimes felt immense guilt kind of with all the side hustles that I do. I do a couple of podcasts, and even like taking a break away from my partner who I love and adore. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I feel bad for going away. But at the same time, I really enjoy doing this sort of stuff. So it's kind of nice to know that I'm not the only one dealing with that, because sometimes I feel like I am.
And in the end, I think it does make you a better partner, a better human, a better friend, a better, parent than, it's kind of shoving down all your creative urges. Once you're fulfilled and you're happy, then they get the best version of you. So it works for everyone in the end.
It does. It definitely does, because I definitely feel like a better version of me after doing it. I alluded to it a little bit in kind of in the introduction, but your normal day job is a counsellor, you're a group facilitator, and you specialise in maternal mental health. And I couldn't help but notice a very notable overlap with that job and that role and the subject matter and the themes of Half-Truth. And I'm really curious as to where this book and the writing process occupied, the space it occupied for you as you were juggling with writing it and your day-to-day work. Was it very much a case of putting down your feelings, about that space in the form of a story, or was it also a case of, I've got some stuff here that I really feel about this space and stuff that I really want to address, and doing it on the page is the best way I can expel that?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's an interesting one, because I think I've realised that questions of kind of motherhood and family and identity, and, these are all things I work with in my kind of practice as a counsellor, but they're also things that come up in the book a lot as kind of thematic contents of Half-Truth. But the reason that they are in both the book and in my work life is that these are obsessions of mine. I had my first baby at 22, and then I went on and had more, and I've got stepchildren, and we've kind of, and these have been questions that I have been wrestling with, my whole life, my whole adult life, basically. How do I both be the mother I want to be and the woman I want to be? And how do I work out who I am outside of these relationships that I have, and is there even an identity there? And so I think that actually it wasn't even intentional. This was just, if it's right what then this is, and I've gone into this area of counselling because I feel like this is an area where I have some expertise, or at least some life experience, that I can empathise with other women going through these, or people going through these kind of situations. So I mean, and actually before that I worked in, I worked in the academia, and I worked in feminist philosophy, and I did a lot of work around, reproductive technologies and how people become mothers and what it does to our, and, embodiment and things like that. So these are just obsessions that I have had pretty much my entire adult life, and I'm just keep coming at them different angles. Like, what's a different way into this, question? What's a different way into this question? And so, yeah, I think it's not an accident, but it's also kind of not intentional. It's just, it's kind of right. You write what you're obsessed with, and these have been ongoing questions for me.
And frankly, it's a space that, frankly, we could do with a lot more great voices and perspectives and viewpoints on. I myself found it very helpful just to sit with this perspective and understand, and have the opportunity to understand it a little bit. I do want to examine these different angles and lenses that you come at this with in a second when we start talking about the book. But I have one final behind the scenes question to ask, which is, last year I had writer Shahidul on the podcast discussing her YA book, How to Free a Djinn, which is set in Malaysia. And I got very interested in her story about how she kind of helped to educate her publisher, Alan Unwin Kids, as to the idiosyncrasies of the Malaysian language and the culture, and also the world that spirits, for example, occupy in Malaysia. Did you have a similar experience with Penguin in terms of bringing that feeling and that spirit of Morocco to the page. And the reason why I asked that is because the culture element of Morocco is also a really important part of the journey of these characters. And I kind of am very curious as to what that experience was like in the as you were putting this book together.
Yeah, it was actually an incredibly affirming experience to work with my publisher, because I really felt that the Moroccanness was almost what had attracted my publisher to my story, was that she was kind of getting an insight into a culture and an environment that she wasn't familiar with. And so there were lots of questions, but they were very open, open-hearted, open-ended kind of questions. And definitely I never felt shut down at all or kind of asked to, there were certainly points where it's like, okay, I think you're going to need to explain what a djinn is, at this moment. We're probably going to need to like slip that in somehow, because we can't assume that the reader knows, has that kind of cultural background. But in terms of commitment to, actually for me, the most amazing bit came when it came to audiobook recording, because there are lots of Darija words,
yes,
which is the Moroccan dialect of Arabic, and there are Tamazight words, which are the indigenous, one of the indigenous languages of Morocco. There are French words because it was a French colony. So there were lots and lots of non-English words in the novel. And so obviously the kind of audiobook narrator had to learn how to pronounce all of those words, and they kind of send you a file and they're like, can you just record all of these words and send us back so we know how to, and I'm like, I don't speak Darija, I don't speak Tamazight. I had kind of found the words, through, various means, but I know them in a written form, but I can't pronounce them myself. So I had to get my beautiful aunt, a friend of the family. She's a young kind of, young woman studying acting in Rabat in Morocco. And I sent her through, this huge list of words, and thank God she was just so happy to do it. And she recorded all of these words, the perfect pronunciation, but the commitment. And then they got on an Arabic language speaker, so the narrator is an Arabic language speaker, but she was Palestinian, so she had to do vocal coaching, vocal lessons in the Moroccan Darija accent so she could get the pronunciation absolutely spot on. And I was just so incredibly impressed at the level of commitment to getting every single one of these words, not only getting the words right, but getting the pronunciation completely appropriate to the Moroccan dialect. Yeah. So no, I actually found it a really because just a few years earlier, kind of in the process of getting published, I think in 21, one of my very first kind of manuscript assessments, or the first time I sent my whole draft out to someone and had them read it, the feedback I got was, look, this is great, it's a really beautiful story, it's really beautifully written, but it's so Moroccan. I don't think an Australian publisher is going to be interested in a story, in a story that is, so much set in Morocco and so much about this Moroccan history and so on. But, just 2 years later, it feels like that seems like ancient advice, because, there was obviously a publisher very willing to take me on. And it's not unusual actually now to see Australian publishing industry publishing novels that are set in Arab countries, for example.
Let's talk about this book. Let's talk about Half-Truth.
Let's do it.
For those on YouTube, I'm holding up a copy of the title, a copy of the book. It is, shout out to how gorgeous this cover is, by the way. My God.
Christabella design. It's amazing.
They killed it. It's so stunning. I love the color. I love the layout of it. It's such a beautiful space, and also the empty face, which I think, which leans very nicely here into this. This is the part of the podcast where we do a classic elevator pitch. I hop in the elevator. You are in there. You have to tell me what Half-Truth is about. So, what is it about?
Okay, so Half-Truth is a story of two women who are searching for the same man. One is, it's set between Morocco and Tasmania, and one is Zara. She's a 22-year-old new mum living in remote, isolated Tasmania, and she's never met her father, who comes from Morocco. So when she has her first baby, she decides that it's time to work out, where he is and what it means for her to come from Morocco. And at the same time, we meet Khadija, who is also searching for her son. He hasn't been seen for 25 years. She's on her deathbed and she's kind of wondering what she could have done to keep her son safe. So this is a story of how these two women come to know each other, how they have both lived, I suppose, in the absence of this same man who is Zara's father and Khadija's son.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Nailed it. Ding. We've arrived at the half-truth level. It's excellent. And you've nailed it perfectly. And the thing that brings these characters together, and the key part of this story, is that it is a story about motherhood and the messy journey that it is. And I want to actually start, if I can, with a particular quote from the book, or a particular quote in regards to it, which I think really nails the theme of this. Being a mother rips you apart. It takes everything you know and fucks it up, squeezes it, tears at the fabric of your existence, and leaves you thinking, where the hell am I? And what the hell just happened?
This is quite dire, isn't it? It gets better. It gets better, guys. It gets better.
Well, no, I feel like, but it's honest, which is critical. But it's interesting to me, particularly about your examination of motherhood and the two kind of angles that we'll examine. We'll dive into with these two characters, is that you think, is that while you think you'll adjust, of course you do adjust to being a mother. What you show here is that, the different journeys these two women find themselves is that while, yes, you do adjust to being a mother, but the challenges also change as well, and they pull you apart in different ways the older you get. It's no longer just dealing with this little baby or whatever. Then suddenly your child has a mind of their own. They go on their adventures. They disagree with you, and it can even come down to moral disagreements, other disagreements, cultural disagreements, and that challenges you as a parent in so many other different ways, which is an incredibly vulnerable position to be in, and all parents would get this. That's the thing. It's like, you've been on that journey, you understand it, and it's multifaceted in that examination. Tell me about, first of all, exploring motherhood in this book.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of Half-Truth was written. It was written actually half as memoir and half as fiction. So initially Zara's story was written as memoir, and Khadija was always fiction because she was a fictionalized version of her, what I imagined my grandmother's life may have been. So that phrase that you read out from Zara is really very much speaking to the experience that I had as a new mum, and Zara has this experience as well. And what's been fictionalized about it is more about, the fictionalization is about kind of all the surrounding characters. That's what I did to fictionalize it. I took a journey that took 7 years. It came down to 1, so there was a whole lot of logistical fictionalizing to kind of make the narrative be a little bit neater, unlike real life. But Zara's journey very much kind of reflects mine, at least emotionally. If nothing else, the emotional journey is very much my emotional journey. So I think that what I didn't realize when I was writing this was that Zara is in that year that we would now call, or I would call as a therapist, it's her matrescence. And by this word matrescence, it's a word that is kind of become popular recently in the last few years, but actually was coined in the 70s. And that term, it refers to the kind of physiological, psychological, hormonal life, identity changes that you go through when you have a child. And Zara is in that year where she has just, everything she's known about who she was has just kind of been exploded, but she's yet to kind of solidify an identity kind of work out who she is going forward. She doesn't know what this mother looks like. She doesn't know, she hasn't accustomed to kind of her body that she, this postpartum body that's, disgusting her. She really is so uncomfortable in herself. And so her journey to Morocco is really about coming to terms with the new person that she is post motherhood, and she gets there, she gets there. But it's interesting because for me, as I wrote this, I was writing it as a 45-year-old woman, so I wasn't that 22-year-old new mum. I've had lots of other children, and I also had teenagers at that point. And so as I was writing Hadija, a lot of her story we hear about her matrescence, but we certainly go on to see her raising her firstborn son, who is Ahmed, who is the Zara's father. And she's really wrestling with these questions of, how do I keep this adolescent son safe, and he's dangerous and he's beautiful. And she can look at him and see the young man that, the baby, the little boy that he was, when she looks at this kind of tall, gorgeous man, and that's what mothers do. We look at that. We look at our big men kind of, and all we see is the sweet little boys, that's wrapped up in there. But we also know that the rest of the world doesn't see that. They don't look at our boys and see at our young men and see the little boys. They look at them and see, activists or whatever they are, they see the, threats even, they're the young men that you cross the street from, but as a mother, you look and you can still see the sweetness, And so actually for me, as I was writing Hadija, that was the life I was living. I had teenage boys. And I kind of identified a lot more with Hadija's story of like, this recognition that all I want to do is to keep this child safe, but I have no ability to do that anymore, and I have to let go. And so that journey. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but I certainly felt like elements of my experience of motherhood were kind of, seeping the whole way through.
Yeah, well, no, it makes so much more sense now, because like it did feel like you balanced that line of two different angles of motherhood very, very beautifully, and it kind of actually really makes sense now that you kind of connected with Hadija as well as Zara, because Zara, you've been down that journey experienced that journey quite a lot, and I feel like I'm so glad there's a word to describe this, because as I was. The kind of another theme that kind of stuck out to me was this idea as well of self-identity within motherhood, because there is that worry that very much Zara is very much dealing with here, because she isn't sure of herself. There's a big change has happened in her life. It's no longer the life of herself. It's not the self-centered life. It's the start of the other-centered life, where a priority is in her children. And that is a big, massive change. So she has a sudden need to find that her identity in herself and her roots in herself, now that she has her own child, to build that, to help them feel as comfortable and loved growing up as possible. I find it so. I didn't know that there was actually like an actual phrase for that.
Yeah. So it's similar to adolescence, matrescence is kind of, similar in the sense of, adolescence. Once the child goes through puberty, the child on the other that emerges post-puberty is completely different, but yeah, obviously the same, but it's a different human being entirely to the one that goes into, puberty, into adolescence. But, yeah, so no, I find that, and my clients find that term incredibly useful as well. But I think also with Zara, I think she's trying to work out who she is, but there's also something about having your first child, or that makes you reflect on what you had and what you didn't have growing up, perhaps as a child. And so I think there's also part of Zara's motivation to go to Morocco is wanting to be able to offer her little Moroccan son something that she didn't have, which is this understanding of the culture, because she's grown up in Tasmania. She doesn't know her Moroccan family. She's never met her father, who's Moroccan. She's grown up in a white family with a very white, and she has always felt this lack, this emptiness, this space of kind of questions without answers, and questions that were kind of pushed away in a well-intentioned way, but in a way that we're kind of minimizing or dismissive, like we don't see color, it doesn't matter, you're just tanned, but of course Zara knows that there's something different about her. She's not like her family, and even though she feels very much like everyone else, she's constantly being pulled out of that sense of belonging by other people who are asking things like, oh, are you adopted, or where are you from, and she knows that they don't want her to say Tasmania, they don't want her to say Launceston, they want her to say Morocco, but she's never even been to Morocco, she doesn't know what it means, she doesn't know anything about it. So but nevertheless, that's the answer people are satisfied with. They're not satisfied with any other answer. Any other answer is like, no, not that. So she wants to be able to give her son, who looks like her, and is the first person she's ever met that looks like her, she wants to be able to give him an understanding of a cultural identity that she doesn't have. And so in order to be able to give that, she has to find it for herself.
The words that kind of came to mind when I was thinking about her and her journey is like, I love that you bring us into her head, and because everything feels new, it's unsettled, there's the emotions are just bubbling below the surface as to how she's trying to make understanding and sense of everything and dealing with something she hasn't experienced before. And that contrast with Khadija is really interesting because she's very much on the other end of this journey. She's, as you mentioned, she's on her deathbed. She's packing up her home that she's been in for 50 years, and she has led this long, long life. Yet, because she is seeking her son, there's like an emptiness, not necessarily an emptiness, but like there's a gap in her life that's missing, and which is kind of a whole bunch of other different challenges in itself. And I particularly love that you've brought up the conflict of, even if you have a son who is in their 30s or is having their own family, that conflict of still seeing them as that little boy that you grew up with, or that you helped raise, and that it's hard to come to terms with the fact that they're their own adult now and they're going on their own journey, and viewing them not just as your son but as an adult. Tell me about that. And also, because it feels like this is something that I feel like every child has this similar issue with their parent, like, see me as an adult.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
And but yet because you can't understand that, because you haven't lived the life that they have, and why they look at you like the way they do.
That's so interesting. I've never thought about it like that, in the sense of kind of wrestling to be seen as an adult, because I think you can do both. I think you can rearrange, an adult relationship with your have an adult relationship with your children, but for Khadija, that relationship is it's broken because he's gone, and so she doesn't get to develop that relationship. She doesn't get to and in a lot of ways, because Khadija was a child when she had Ahmed, there is a different relationship, I think, that she has with her firstborn son than perhaps she has with her other children that have stuck around and done all the work. And I suppose there's also something in there about the sense of kind of the golden absent child or something, like that you kind of dream for the one that's not there, whereas there is, at the same time, there are other children there who are looking after her every single day, and she's not longing for them. She's a little bit, she almost takes them for granted. Yeah.
Because but they're present there every day, and then you don't realize how good, how valuable and kind and loving they are until suddenly they're not there anymore.
And they perhaps don't get the credit that they deserve. But I think that, I think Ahmed was an interesting character for me to write, because I didn't want the story to be about Ahmed. So he is in the story, but I very much wanted the novel to be the women's story, and the story of the women who he who he left behind, or whose lives were marked by his absence. So, you have a daughter who is like, hasn't grown up with her father, doesn't know her culture, doesn't know anything about, the country that he comes from. And you have a mother who is longing to see her son. And, and this is also based on, so when I got to Morocco, I discovered my father had been missing for 25 years. This is true. And
Wow.
hadn't been seen since. So this, all of when Zara arrives and discovers that her father's not there, that is all my true story. And everyone told me in Morocco that, what is not true is that I didn't meet Hadija. Hadija, my grandmother, had died 2 years earlier before I arrived in Morocco. So, which was, and she was married at 11, and she did have my father at 13. And so these were the two facts that I knew about her that made me really desperately want to imagine myself into her story and imagine myself into her life. But what I was told in Morocco was that my grandmother, Hadija, had died from a broken heart because her firstborn son never came back. Which is just heartbreaking. And I know that this is true. She lived in terrible pain from his absence, from his disappearance, because also it's an Islamic society. He was the firstborn son. He had a lot of responsibilities that he didn't fulfill, So there was actually like a lot of physical kind of like, he didn't provide money. He didn't, all of these things he didn't do kind of thing. But also, obviously it was just the fact that she desperately loved him. I did realize later though that the words broken heart, died from a broken heart, may actually have been a translation error. It could have been they were trying to tell me she died from a heart attack. But like heart attack, broken heart, like I'm going to run with the more poetic version. Yeah.
If a parent has lost contact with their child, like you, of course that will break your heart. You're only as happy as your least happy child. I think it's
so true.
Yep. It's so just that dynamic was just so fascinating as a contrast, particularly with Zara's journey as well, to try and at the other end, at the start of her journey as a mother. The particular thing that I also want to kind of also throw in here as an additional element of it is, of course, you're dealing with mothers struggling with their own identity and becoming a mother in more ways than one. And within the context, there's the grief element in there, and then the sudden change in your life. But then there's also the cultural pressures as well thrown within that too, especially once we get to Marrakesh. Where does motherhood fit within the context of Moroccan life, and how does that manifest in different ways for these two characters?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, mothers are revered in Islam, and Morocco is an Islamic country. I think I'm going to get this quote wrong, but it's something like "Heaven lies at the feet of the mother." This is the phrase. I'm probably getting it wrong, but I think for Zara, what she discovers in Morocco is a community of women. And I think there's a huge difference between the isolation of motherhood that Zara experiences in Tasmania compared to the kind of communal experience of motherhood. So, I mean, for example, Zara, Hadija can't breastfeed her first child, and her neighbour breastfeeds for her. That's the kind of community, and so they kind of raise their children together. The hammam is this beautiful kind of communal bathing experience. And so when Zara kind of discovers herself in Morocco, there's certainly, it's a mixed bag, because Zara's very Australian, right? And so she's like, these women don't work and they don't do this and they can't travel. And so she's got all of her, and that is all, like, none of this is kind of one note, like the
context of Tasmania bleeds into the page. The context of Tasmania is her lens that she's viewing this world in as well.
Yeah, and when she initially looks, she's kind of disgusted by their lives. Like, really, actually, her first reactions are, thank God that's not me. Like, I'm glad I don't have to live this little life, But obviously, the deeper she gets, the more nuance she starts to pick up, and she starts to realize, if I had lived here, maybe I wouldn't have felt so bad about my postpartum body, because maybe I would have been used to bathing with other women who have had children, and, you know, this beautiful sense of kind of tactile connection of kind of the hammam being this kind of beautiful communal experience of scrubbing each other and, you know, shamelessness, you know, like this sense of, but that sounds like the wrong word, shameless, like as if it's kind of just a complete lacking of self-consciousness, just being very comfortable in yourself, in your body. And so she kind of, there's a lot of things that she starts to realize, perhaps, you know, she has missed or will miss by being a Tasmanian woman kind of parenting in our own little bubble. And, you know, I think that there is something in that. I think that we do have a strangely isolationist kind of approach to parenthood, you know, with our little nuclear families and our little bubbles, you know, and I think a lot of the world doesn't parent like that. It's a far more communal experience. And, you know, as a Westerner, when you go into that kind of culture, it is a bit like, oh, wow, this has been so much easier. In a lot of ways. Sometimes being a lot harder, you know.
Yeah, the journey of being of raising children. I mean, God, if everyone knew how to raise a child, it would be so easy, wouldn't it? But that's not the reality. It's every parent is kind of going, what the hell am I doing?
And I think in Morocco there is that sense of it being a communal kind of responsibility, in the sense, and that's intense for Zara too, because, you know, like at one point her uncle kind of takes her baby and just takes him for a walk, and in like that's totally reasonable and completely understandable in Moroccan culture, and you know, it should be here too. But she doesn't know her uncle and she doesn't know the community, and she's like, you can't just take my random baby, you know, like what if you feed it something, and what if you this, you know. She's just like, there's this sense of kind of like, it's my baby, I need to be 100% responsible 100% of the time. Whereas in Morocco, there's just not that. There's like, this is our baby. This baby belongs to our family. So obviously we're all responsible for looking after it. And it doesn't matter whether it's the uncle holding it or me holding it, or, you know, like, it doesn't matter. It's we're all, this is our baby.
I loved that, by the way. I did really appreciate that scene. Maybe it's just because in my head, I'm just like, of course the male side of the family is going to help out and understand that, because they're part of the journey too. It's the whole our baby headspace is so is,
or like even in the cafe, the people, you know, they're going to take your baby while you eat, kind of thing, like, you know. Yeah.
It's just so different, but it's so different as well for Hadija as well, when she's when she arrives, when she's in Morocco, like there as well. It's like, tell me a bit about that context for her.
Well, Hadija is born in a village outside of Marrakesh, and Hadija is an Amazi woman. She's an indigenous Moroccan. It's often called Berber, but Amazi is the word for themselves. But you know, if you've been to Morocco, you might have heard the word Berber. And she lives outside of Marrakesh in a very traditional way. So for her, moving to Marrakesh is the kind of when she marries a man from Marrakesh, much older man, and it's an arranged marriage, and she's only 11 years old. So it's terrifying for her. So motherhood is, you know, hugely confronting for her, but also there's an element of pride and respect that goes along with that role. So her you know, she feels her status rising, you know, with the birth of her child and her subsequent children. And so it's but of course, you know, her birth experiences, her, you know, the maternal health care, but also there's a lot of ritual in her experience too, and a lot of spiritual kind of, you know, you will see the jinn kind of appearing and disappearing, and you know, being appeased through her birth experiences and her travels into Marrakesh. And for me, that was writing Hadija and her journey was the biggest, that was the impetus for me to write this novel. I wanted to get to know this woman, and I got to do a lot of research in the process of writing her. I got to go quite deep into kind of, ethnographic research and kind of anthropological research, which is kind of weird to feel like you're learning about your own culture through kind of translated French anthropologists. It's like, this is my grandmother's life and I'm reading a French anthropologist, from 1920. It's odd. But that said, these traditions don't, if they exist today, they don't exist today in my family. My family is now, in a more urbanized environment. They've been in Marrakesh, but also, now kind of moved all around the place. So I couldn't get that from my family. So, that's how you learn about these kind of practices and beliefs. And, and that was part of the joy for me, was really getting to know, or at least picture what it could have been like to be a, 13-year-old new mum in Marrakesh in the 1930s. Like, yeah. So it's an extraordinary life, but at the time, very, very ordinary. Like, she's one of those people that I wanted to write a story about someone that wasn't special in Morocco, that was just ordinary. They're one of those little old ladies you might see walking past you in the marketplace, and you just kind of go, oh yeah, there's a little old lady, nothing, outstanding about her. But of course, she's lived this extraordinary life full of, rich pleasure and pain.
I will not give away any spoilers as to how these journeys resolve. We do not. We'll keep the ending free. But this is a book, with emotion bubbling beneath the surface, filled with color in the landscapes that these people travel to. It is a journey, and I must admit, after I put the book down, I kind of had a moment of pause, sitting with this story, because you've sat with these themes and these challenges in your life, professionally, personally. What did writing Half-Truth teach you, particularly as a means of exploring all of these themes that you're so familiar with, and I have no doubt will continue to explore as you continue on in your life? How is it like exploring these themes in a fictional world, albeit based on your own journey, but on the page?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. What did it teach me? I learned a lot about Morocco, and there's a lot of politics in there as well. So I learned a lot about Moroccan history and politics. So that, and I think it's sometimes, because we talk so much about it being about motherhood, I think we can kind of miss the fact that it's actually a deeply political story, and you learn a lot about Moroccan politics because that is, what happens, gets involved in politics. Anyway, that is an activism, and so it's anti-colonialism. It's looking at the rights of the indigenous people of Morocco. So there is a lot. So I learned a lot about Moroccan politics. I also learned a lot about, as I was talking about, the rituals and beliefs of the Amazigh people. But I also, this is the first long form fiction I've written. So, there's a lot of craft when you are learning how to put together a novel. It's a huge project, and it's something that I didn't know I could do before I did it. So, there's definitely and actually I didn't even know, because I started writing this in order to tell a family story for my kids. Like, I didn't ever think I was going to get published. I didn't even start writing. I didn't tell anyone I was writing. It was a secret for the first, until I had a full, complete first draft. I didn't tell a soul. So I also learned, but what I discovered, and I thought, okay, the memoir, I don't know, because anyway, the memoir I wrote, and I just wrote it, and it was good. It was tricky for me to get into the voice of my 22-year-old, of a 22-year-old me or new mum. But what I really discovered was how much I love writing fiction. Like writing Khadijah's part was so much more fun than writing the memoir. The memoir bit was, oh yeah, whatever. Like, I know how that story ends. Do you know what I mean? Like, I knew how Khadijah's story went, because, that was based on truth. But my God, writing Khadijah was so much fun. Like, yeah. So I think in a lot of ways I was like, oh my God. And, and because I come from a background of academia, and I come from a background of having, writing research papers that are, interesting, but it's my voice, they're interesting, but, like referenced and, and everything needs to be backed up and, proven. And I was like, you can just make stuff up. Like, when I was writing fiction, I was like, I can just make this up. It was like such a revelation. Like, I just couldn't believe that I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. I could just make it up. Like, what? Yeah. Anyway, so that was a miracle. So yeah, I love writing fiction. So that was the best discovery, was actually that I really, really like this. And that, I love it. Just make it up.
You don't have to citate. You don't have to back up this stuff. You can just
referencing.
Oh, yes. Isn't it liberating?
Feels like cheating the whole time. Like, I'm like, I don't have to prove this to anyone. Like, she can just die now. Or
Oh. Will you write it? Will you do more fiction again?
100%.
Like you do.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. No, I was like, this is ace. Yeah, this is like, I think, I don't know why. It was almost like permission giving though. Like, there's something about writing fiction that I didn't think was, I don't know, like I just thought it was for special magical people that were authors, not like ordinary people like me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always felt like, obviously that's, I don't know. I didn't think I had permission to just write stories. And, obviously, getting a book published is this, incredible permission giver that is like, actually, not only can you is it okay to do it, but someone even might want to read it as well. Like,
you sure as hell do have permission now.
Yeah. And I mean, now I have to go, okay, well now it's a different mindset, I suppose, of thinking, okay, well, yeah, I can't pretend that no one will read it now. Like I don't have that comfort of that freedom of knowing that, it actually, no one's ever going to read this. So like, I can literally do what I want. But I think I have to kind of try and fool myself that that's the way, so that I give myself back that freedom to kind of, play. And because it's just so much fun.
We'll finish off the show. We'll finish off the podcast with a rapid fire part of the date, a rapid fire question part of the date.
Awesome.
So I'm just going to fling questions at you, and you give me the first answer that comes to your head. Be terrified.
Done. No, I mean, already terrified. No, you're the least terrifying person I think I've ever spoken to, Nick. I'm not terrified at all.
Oh, shucks. That's so sweet of you. Oh, thank you. So the first question is, what is your favorite book that you've read in the last 12 months?
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I have picked Heartsease by Kate Cromick, which I don't know if you've read it, but she is a Tasmanian author. It's out with Pickett or Pan Macmillan, I think. It is so beautiful. I'm holding it up now because I just don't think it's got
stunning.
I don't think it's got the attention that it should have, but it is. It's although it's shortlisted for the Tasmania Literary Prize. It is just the most achingly beautiful story. It's about grief. It's about loss. It's very funny. It's darkly funny. And yeah, she's just the most beautiful writer. She's the fiction editor of Island magazine, Kate Cromick. Oh. Yeah. But yeah, Heartsease, pick it up. It's gorgeous, completely gorgeous.
I love that you've shouted out a Tasmanian author for this question. That's that's really, really sweet. I love that.
Oh, no, it is a gorgeous book. You won't regret it. It's gorgeous.
What is your favourite debut novel that you've ever read?
Oh, so yeah, I think this is terrible, but I think it's either The Kite Runner or The God of Small Things, because you said ever. Yeah,
that's all right. You can go for something. You can go for something that's popular or done. There's a reason why it's popular.
Yeah, but also I love both of those books deeply. When I read them, it was achingly gorgeous. But also, I mean, more recently in Australia, if we're going to go for Australian ones, they are popular though. I love Dictionary of Lost Words.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. I mean, I know she had written a memoir before that, but that's her fiction debut. But yeah, I mean, I just read that and went, oh my God, this is so beautiful.
We'll count that. And I will say, I don't think there is a favourite debut book that comes up more than the Dictionary of Lost Words in this podcast.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
It is very gorgeous. If there is one place in Morocco you recommend everyone visit, where would it be?
Jamafna Square.
Oh, beautiful.
Jamafna Square in Marrakesh. Yeah. You may not want to go back. It's pretty intense.
Is that the food market? The one where like you can eat like a
head. Yeah, but it's also like there's snakes, there's monkeys, there's snake charmers, monkeys, henna, juice, traditional storytellers, weird games with like, it's just people, medicine men selling iguanas. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Cultural World Heritage Site, and it hasn't, the reason for that is that it hasn't changed in thousands of years. So Marrakesh has been a melting pot for the meetings of kind of, across Africa, between, Europe, Africa. It's been this meeting point for millennia, and the gathering place was Jamafna Square. So, yeah, I think if you can only go one place, that's probably the deepest Morocco experience you'll get.
It's so funny you say that, because I actually have a question on the main market of Marrakesh, and I didn't realize that that's what it's called, Jamafna Square. I'm going to ask that question now.
Go, please.
You're in Jamafna Square and you're looking for something to eat. What's your go-to?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to walk away from the square because it really is too intense and people are going to yell at you. And I'm going to go to I don't like eating there. Like, I mean, a juice, I would definitely get fresh juice. But actually, if you're in Marrakesh, you can get a tangier, which is it's a Marrakesh only kind of specialty dish. It's like a tagine, but it's in a little different shaped pot, and it's a clay baked stew with lamb usually. But yes, I would be. But it's hard. Friday's couscous. Obviously couscous with 7 vegetables. But. Actually, I'd be heading to my aunt's house. If you can get inside a Moroccan family home for food, do it. That's
so sweet. That is the sweetest answer. I love that.
Oh, she's an amazing cook. She's the best food you ever get is inside a Moroccan family home.
Oh, I love it. You're a self-described lover of words. Do you have a favorite word?
Oh, that's so funny. My daughter asked me this yesterday. She said she told me her favorite word is pedestrian. Like, really? She just likes the way it sounds. I was like, oh, she's 9. I was like, that's cute. Pedestrian. And I have always liked languid. I don't know why I've always liked languid.
Way it sounds.
Yeah, because it also feels lazy, and I feel lazy. And when I'm a lazy person. That likes languidly languishing.
I love it. Morocco, or particularly Marrakesh, is very famous for its storytellers. I've heard so many stories about the storytellers there. Do you have a favorite story from your travels?
Like a traditional story, as opposed to a story of like something that happened.
Either or. I mean, if you have a good traditional story, because I know there are orators there who can actually espouse and tell the actual story.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for me, because I don't speak Darija, there is not a lot. I can't understand a lot of them. Although, last time I was in Marrakesh last year, I went to a storytelling cafe, and there is a young Moroccan man there who tells traditional stories, but in English, to, visitors at the cafe kind of thing. So that's great. So I did actually have the opportunity to sit and listen to some amazing stories. And, in the novel, there is a story that always cracks me up that came from a traditional story collection. And it's called The Girl That Gave Birth to a Turd. It cracks me up. I know. So she's like, there's this mother, every day she prays for a daughter. She prays for a child. And then eventually no child. And eventually she says to God, look, just give me a child, any child, you know, I don't even care if it's a turd. And sure enough, the next thing she gives birth to a turd. And then she puts the turd in a little, she loves the turd. And the turd goes in a little like crystal bowl by the toilet in the bathroom. And she sings these songs of lament with the most beautiful voice, this turd. And she sings, I have no arms, I have no hair, I have no hair to brush, you know, like she's just, anyway, like a passing sultan is walking past and he hears this voice, and it's the most beautiful voice he's ever heard, and he must get to know him. He decides he must marry the singer, you know, the woman with this voice, but of course it's a turd in a bowl. Yeah, anyway, the story goes on. The story goes on, but yeah, that one always cracks me up.
This story sounds amazing. I love it. How is Russell Sprout doing? And can you name all dogs from now on? Because that's an amazing name.
Well, that also my daughter gets to take credit for that one. Yeah, Russell Sprout. Yeah, Russell
shout out to your daughter.
Yeah, who loves pedestrian and named her dog Russell Sprout. He is a terror. He's a terror. He's a 9-month-old black lab, and he is just making my life an absolute chaos. But we love him.
Yes, it's the story of all dogs, isn't it? Feels like
but particularly Labradors. He's just tall. Like he can reach. Like we can't keep anything off the benches now. Like so, kitchen island over. Like you know, kitchen table. It's like his buffet. It's like what can I take off here?
He's a lanky boy, is what he is. He's a very.
Sure he is.
I've heard on the grapevine that you are a massive fan of flowers. Do you have a favorite flower, and where is the best place in the house to keep them? And I feel like I already have the answer to if you're on YouTube, I feel like I have the answer already here in front of me.
Oh, yeah, that's so cute. Oh, that's lovely. No, well, the sunflowers are out at the moment, and they happen to be on my book. So, yeah, we went sunflower picking last week. I do love a sunflower, but I wouldn't say they're my favorite. I love a cafe au lait dahlia. I love myself a king protea or two. I had a stint as a work from home florist for a while, doing flowers for weddings, which was just so much fun. I mean, I honestly think I could just play with flowers all day, but it became less fun when people like started actually, I don't know, wanting big weddings and so on. I loved it when it was just for my friends. Like I could flowers. Actually, my favorite flower is when I stole. Like, you know, foraged. When I foraged, I love foraged flowers. I like to kind of get creative with what I can find in my garden or in my mother's garden or in some other garden that I have access to. Yes, when people started asking me for very specific things that I had to order from the other side of the world, I was like, I don't feel so good about this. But yeah, I like flowers I can pick. If I can pick them, I'm happy.
That's
unfortunately I can't grow them.
I love it. Last question. Are you happy?
Oh,
sorry to just take an earnest turn all
that's so sweet. I am so happy, Nick. Yeah, no, I'm really, really happy. I feel like there's this beautiful kind of buzz that you get at this, you know, having launched your debut novel. Like there's, you know, I mean, it's like, when do you ever get a kind of party like that where everyone's just kind of, I mean, I had the most amazing launch in Hobart. I think there were about 150 people there. It was like, you know, there were people standing for rows and rows and rows in the bookshop. It was packed. Had a beautiful Moroccan family making Moroccan tea and biscuits. And I sat down with a friend who was interviewing me, who I've known for, 30 years. And I think when we sat down, before we even said a word, there was this like giant round of applause. Like everyone was so buzzing and so excited, just like, yeah. So no, that was an absolute dream come true. And it's just been the loveliest experience. I mean, I've met the most amazing people in the Australian kind of book community. It's just been lovely people after lovely people. And yeah, and I'm very, very lucky in every other part of my life. So no, I am very happy. Are you happy? And do you need a book? Do you want to book an appointment?
Love that you threw that in right at the end.
I am actually sitting in my office, like in my counselling office as well. Like, it's like it's a bit of both. So I'm like, I do have it. I've got someone coming in an hour, but I've got a space for a session now.
Oh, I love it. That's a great answer. Nadia is happy. That's all I need to know, which is wonderful. It has been such an absolute pleasure chatting with you and talking about this beautiful book, Half Truth, published by Penguin. Guys, everyone listening, go and get yourself a copy. It is a beautiful, touching, and wonderful journey. Nadia, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It really helps the show out. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Catch you soon! Date with a Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production.